Well, hello, welcome to the Tony Kinnett cast here on The Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. The Tony Kinnett cast is going to begin without a whole lot of ado, a whole lot of muss, a whole lot of fuss, because there are cheating scandals to discuss. And I mean cheating scandals anywhere and everywhere, all over the place. We're talking from Republican accusations to Democrat accusations to a man's own wife deciding that now is the time to get involved. So Graham Plattner up in Maine, when he originally became the presumptive Democrat candidate to go up against Susan Collins, it was quite an opportunity because this was the time for Bernie Sanders. He was so excited about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but see, up in the Maine, we could get him up there. We could run the socialism. He is a basic-looking white guy. He's kind of chubby around the middle. He's Graham Plattner. And Bernie Sanders and the left was really excited. I mean, this was going to be their guy that knocked over Susan Collins with ease, with finesse, with panache even. Here they were.
I think it's very telling that a political system that has become controlled by money, controlled by the power of organized money.
The power of organized money, the money, it's organized. It lines up in the cash registers. I can't stand it. The only kind of organization should be in the bread lines, where you line up for the bread that you get almost every day.
Is also a political system that is trying to convince all of us down here that policy and discussions around what government can or cannot do is not what they want to talk about. It's fascinating to me that the more money
Bernie is just sitting there kind of sort of slowly passing away
that goes into our political system, the less we talk about actual politics.
You want to hear what's really crazy? I mean, and every day it gets worse. Super PACs. I hate super PACs.
I hate them. I don't like them. Only my people are allowed to spend the money. No one else. I don't care. I mean, I take a lot of money. It goes to George Soros, the Alex Soros. That money is perfectly fine. Hansjorg Wyss. We're going to bring on Tyler O'Neill, our senior editor, who's been doing a deep dive into foreign spending into, for example, an election measure regarding abortion in Missouri. But this is the guy, the Graham Plattner. This is the Bernie Sanders kind of guy. While Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is still licking her wounds from not knowing where any country is, whether that's a South American country and where the equator is, or whether that's where European countries are, or whether a company is an accounting company or a chemical company, she's a little busy at the moment and, getting on the hijab and being ignored by, Muslim men during a prayer festival. But now Graham Plattner's got a couple of issues, and these issues come from his wife. So this is a fun one. So according to the reporting from just about each and every single outlet, back in the spring of 2025, early on in their marriage between Graham Plattner and Amy Gertner, his wife, Gertner discovered sexually explicit text messages on Plattner's phone exchanged with multiple women. Now, campaign sources differ on the number, up to 6 per current campaign officials and as many as a dozen per former political director Genevieve McDonald. Now, that I say right off the start, if the argument is not whether or not you cheated on your wife, who you just got married to, but, then a little, steppity stone up there. Now it's how many women you cheated on your wife with. Yeesh. And when social media gets involved, it's bad. There are a couple of Facebook pages, social media groups, as it were, who specialize in the, hey, are we dating the same dude? And the page is filled with, well, actually, last I knew he was getting married. I was dating him. Oh, I was dating him. Oh, I was dating him. Yeah, not really a good look. Well, because these particular details were shared by, again, according to the reporting, John Ossoff's wife, Amy, with the campaign. I mean, the story that's trying to be told is she said, hey, this might come up, so I'm letting you know my husband is garbage, which, that's quite a thing that happened. So anywho, from late 2025 into early 2026, he faced all other kinds of controversies, all other kinds from here to there to everywhere. And over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times published stories based on leaks, including from Genevieve McDonald, who used to work with the campaign. And essentially, here's what happened. The wife said, hey, you should know about these. And then Plattner, who ended up either getting rid of or firing this particular staffer, then said, hey, well, you know what would be funny? What if I leaked all of these text messages of how explicit you were with women? And then the internet scrapers started getting down to business. Scraping is an internet termed. Oh, I did not mean to say Ossoff's wife. Excuse me. I didn't mean to say that. Plattner's wife, not Ossoff. I apologize. We're getting to Ossoff in a minute. Excuse me. Graham Plattner, not John Ossoff. I'm glad I have producers that heard that little verbal flip there. Regarding Plattner and his wife, after having those things leaked, the internet scrapers got to business. By this, I mean that there are individuals who started getting out the old search engines and started using Boolean operators to search if there was anything about Graham Plattner's known usernames or email addresses that might correspond to various sites. These are the tips and tricks of the trade that are known by online investigative journalists and girlfriends trying to figure out details about one of their girls in the group who's suddenly, dating this new guy. That kind of internet sleuthing dug up his active profile on Kik. Now, that's a dating website, social media website, that is focused on catering to young adults and minors. It has a really bad reputation, so of course he has a picture here in a towel, which, yeah.
Nope.
No, thank you. So anywho, what is this? Kik is, as the New York Times describes it, a predator's paradise. A wildly popular app, Kik offers teenagers and predators anonymity. That's according to all of this media reporting. So yeah, there you go. The Democrat candidate for Maine, he's got yet another serious scandal right in the works. So he did what every scumbag does. He sent out his wife to do a little bit of fighting for him.
Hey everyone, it's Amy. I wanted to make a statement today and, I'm getting eaten by bugs. I wanted to make a statement today in response to a couple of news articles that are out there about my marriage to Graham. If anybody knows me and Graham personally, you know that we got married in 2023. We live in Sullivan. We've got 2 dogs.
Okay, that's great. That has nothing at all to do with the situation. If he is a cheating scumbag who is also on a website that is known for predators and minors communicating, somebody get Chris Hansen over here. I mean, this is kind of concerning. Some might call that a problem. The rest of this 4.5-minute video is just her saying, we have a marriage counselor, I have a personal counselor, and then he has a personal counselor, and I promise that he's an okay guy. That's the whole video. It's 4.5 minutes long. That's all she says, the whole thing. So Graham's got some problems, and it's not something that you can just kind of slough off and ignore, because when we get into the midterm season, you don't really have the presidential candidates. Instead, you have the front runners for the party's vision. And the left right now has gone all in on the Bernie Sanders socialism kind of front runners. Bernie has gone up and done the rallies. Elizabeth Warren done this big, huge public endorsement. The left-wing economic vision, all about universal healthcare and the universal education and taxing the super rich billionaires, all that kind of crap. That is what Graham Plattner was selected to do. Now, on the social side with James Tallarico, that ain't going too hot either. But this is something that the broader media is, the mental gymnastics are incredible. And we'll get to some of that, but I do want to show you that, first of all, Chris Murphy of Connecticut was immediately asked, are you still going to support the dude? And, of course.
So there's been so much focus on Donald Trump, as many Democrats would say he's an immoral force. You say he's a symptom of all of this. Democrats are running a Senate candidate in Maine who had a Nazi tattoo that he did eventually cover up, but only after having it for many years. Recently, there's been reporting that he was sending sex text messages after he was married. Should those rules apply to Democrats, too? Do you support Graham Plattner even in the wake of all of this?
Yeah, I haven't followed the minute by minute of what's happened over the last few days, but...
Oh, I haven't followed the minute by minute. I was so busy. I was just all the stuff I was doing this weekend.
I do think there's a difference. Plattner has admitted that he's made big mistakes.
How many big mistakes do you have to make? Seriously, how many big mistakes do you have to make? One after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, before it's like, dude, we could probably get anyone else to run and they would be better. A dead cat, a homeless man with a Kermit the Frog doll that he thinks is real. Anyone, any candidate ever. Hillary Clinton, okay, maybe not that bad, could probably beat Susan Collins in this race. And instead, it's, I haven't followed the detail. I'm so busy. Yeah, sure. That's, I don't think it's getting better. Radio Crew will catch you guys on the other side of the commercial. We have a lot more to hit on this because things are starting to crack in the DNC. It's not going to get better. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. So, in the meantime, the mental gymnastics are getting worked up. And I mean, a little bit of mental gymnastics. It's exciting. You get out there and you have all of the yelling and the crying. You got Ryan Grimm from Dropsite News saying, recall that the campaign manager, Genevieve McDonald, she quit the campaign and has been on an anti-Plattner rampage ever since. And then here's my favorite part. If a married couple is happy together, I don't really think it's any of the voters' business what they've been through previously, unless it was abusive. So there we go. As long as they both consented to whoring around, well, then it's fine. I mean, again, recall that the Democrats have made it a huge, massive production about talking about Ken Paxton's scandal when it comes to having allegedly cheating on his wife. But Graham Plattner, 2 years after he married the lady, he's out there posting on messaging sites used for, again, predators attempting to date minors. And that's one large yikes. And this is the other prevailing narrative. It's a nothing burger. Nathan J. Robinson of The Observer, unless anything else comes out, the Plattner texts thing, it's entirely a nothing burger that we should not spend a second of our time discussing. Let's talk about foreign policy, affordability, healthcare. I declined to spend even 2 minutes talking about or thinking about Plattner's sex life. Okay. Well, there's another new one. According to a Reddit post by Plattner, he's also done some cocaine. Embattled Maine Democrat wrote about buying cocaine and also doing some drugs while on military leave in Europe on the government dime. I highly recommend it. No regrets. Now, by the way, Janet Mills is still registered. She is still on the ballot, even though her campaign has been suspended. There are calls inside both the Maine Democrat Party and inside the staff at the DNC who are saying maybe there needs to be a bailing. On the Tallarico side, it's not getting any better, but this brings us to the ladies over on The View. Here's how the kind of left-wing media apparatus is trying to squeak past this as best they can. It's not easy because it is rather scandalous. Here's Whoopi.
Hey, everyone.
Sorry, that's not Whoopi. Here we go.
Welcome back. The controversies keep coming for Democratic Senate candidate Graham Plattner. On the heels of apologizing for a tattoo associated with Nazis, an offensive post about a wounded U.S. soldier, now his wife, Amy Gertner, is responding to reports that she gave his campaign a heads up about her husband sending sexually explicit texts to several different women. Baby, these men are having the hardest time.
Oh, it's the men. Oh, it's these men. It's the men are the issue. See, it's just all men.
So the Plattner says the report isn't true. Now, who knows? But as I was looking at this, I just thought, no shade, gentlemen. But it just feels like y'all are out of control.
I know.
These men are out of control. I'm sorry. I'd love to jump right in here and share. The campaign has confirmed the authenticity of a lot of the stuff here. Number two, the Kick account has now mysteriously gone silent, according to Brent Scher over at the Daily Wire. It's not looking so great. And sorry, the age of guys, these men are just... these men, best of luck to you, sweetie. Sarah Haynes jumps in and decides to make the sex scandal about James Tallarico in Texas. That's a choice.
And not to make this political, because I'm usually not the one that does that, but watching that video of the wife saying, don't spend energy on these ads. The problem with these ads is they are true. These accusations are true. What they're doing to James Tallarico in Texas are calling him things that he isn't. Yeah. That's where you don't spend energy is on false information. Yeah.
But see, so this is just like, they're going after James Tallarico. They're like saying he's vegan just because James Tallarico said he was vegan. How could they? We're going to head back to the radio side, get them back from their commercial break. Tons more on the news side tonight. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Who do you call when this mess is only getting so much worse? It is. It's not getting any easier for the big, huge Senate candidates that we were supposed to see. So the Democrats had all of this amazing bench heading into this midterm season. They were going to take the House. They were going to take the Senate. These candidates were going to swing right on through. I mean, hey, Republicans were going to put up Ken Paxton. He has all this baggage. Oh, that's so terrible. Only now they can't really talk about any of the baggage because Graham Plattner up in Maine is giving them a little of the old catch-22. So we saw this with the House of Representatives earlier in the year, right? You had some Democrats who were accused of various scandals like, taking direct orders from Jeffrey Epstein while going after Trump in a committee back in either 2019 or 2020, or defrauding FEMA like Sheila Syphilis McCormick, or whether we're talking about the exciting sexual scandals of Eric Swalwell, and so on and so forth. There was an opportunity to say, hey, look, we're going to try to get a few of these people out so that you can't try to keep in some Republican candidates that we'd like to get rid of. And so there was a little bit of wheeling and a little bit of dealing, and a lot of candidates, or I should say members of the House of Representatives, resigned right before the Ethics Committee kicked them squarely in the car keys. Now we're on the Senate side. There isn't that kind of equality moving across the board here. Democrats' only maneuver against Ken Paxton is that James Tallarico is an upstanding and wonderful individual who never does anything wrong or weird. And that's just not coming to pass. And don't take my word for it. The internal polls from the Democrat Tallarico campaign right now, again, in this May 27th to May 28th, 1,670 likely voters. It's an internal poll. Slingshot Strategies works directly for the James Tallarico campaign. Only has him up 3 points against Ken Paxton. Guys, come here. Your internal polling should not have you within 5 points of your opponent. Ever. It's your internal polling. This is supposed to be, it's going to be a walk in the park. It's going to be easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. We're going to walk away with this election. It's narrowing because the broader Texas voters who don't really care about the primaries, but now that the primaries are over, they're ready to hit the gridiron. They see James Tallarico, and the video doesn't lie. When he gets up in front of everyone and says, we're in an earlier state campaign, we're running a vegan, meatless campaign. And then you have The View come out and say, oh, he never said that. It's not working. It's not going to work. And that brings us to the last saving grace that it appears they have. Because Gretchen Whitmer announced she ain't running. In Michigan, things aren't really going too hot. There are some concerns about the Senate elections up in Michigan. Because El Sayed, the Islamist candidate, who appears to be the favorite to win the primary, has the least likely chance of beating Republicans in November. So what does that mean? It means they got to find another golden child. Kamala Harris is too drunk right now. She's busy. Elizabeth Warren is cackling to an old Cracker Barrel up in the Northeast. What are we going to do? What are we going to have? Well, we got to go to Jon Ossoff down in Georgia. So we're getting into the rally season. Again, the runoff down in Georgia is not until June 16th. So we're not going to have any reliable polling right now, which means we're kind of shooting in the dark. So if we're shooting in the dark, why are Democrats excited about Jon Ossoff? Because according to an article over on our outlet, The Daily Signal, this is by Pedro Rodriguez, he's trying to portray himself, unlike Tallarico, who fell really hard and failed at doing this, unlike El Sayed and the two ladies he's running against up in Michigan, unlike Graham Plattner of all of the problems ever. Well, Jon Ossoff is going to try to kind of be a little moderate here. And you can see him trying to make this case. He kind of sounds like he's running a Barack Obama 2008 campaign. He's talking about human rights and that kind of a thing.
To make America the world leader on human rights and return nations to the path of peaceful coexistence.
The Kumbaya strategy. We need to hold hands and get out there and say we love one another. It's going to be so easy.
And see, this is what small men like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller will never understand.
Here we go.
that our national greatness flows not through our blood or our genes, but through our ideas.
Yeah, I love they switched to the underside, chin, kind of Barack Obama hope poster angle. Excellent. Good luck to you on that, because he can't even keep himself together. He spent a portion of his rally counting the number of social media posts from Donald Trump, the man he's tweeting quite a bit on Truth Social.
Donald spent Saturday complaining on the internet. Listen to this. 6 hours, 52 posts. The president attacked the Pope. He posted his own face on Mount Rushmore and a made-up Trump Peace Prize. He announced 3 times America's back, and he assured an increasingly concerned public he's in excellent health.
Best of luck to you. That's a big chunk of the rally. That's what he's got. He's going to attack Trump. Even the moderates can't stay away from looking at the issues that Americans are actually concerned about here and providing something. We were supposed to see something from John Ossoff here that appealed to some of the kind of Bill Clinton kind of economic populists from the 90s. Some trade protectionism, some manufacturing protectionism, very pro-union. But he didn't spend his rally doing that. That's what voters want from Ossoff, by the way. That's not according to me. That is according to some of the last polling, which again is very sparse. So I'm not going to bring it up a bunch. But some of the polls brought up in Georgia that have been cataloged by Real Clear Polling, Georgians want a Senate candidate who's going to step forward and provide an economic vision of where are we going? What are we doing? Americans want the calm airline pilot. And Ossoff looks the part. He may even be able to kind of calmly speak his points. But that third out of the 3 things there, that's the crucial one. That's going to matter quite a bit in the upcoming election. And again, when it comes to trying to appear moderate here, according to Pedro Rodriguez, on his campaign website, Ossoff lists political issues that are overwhelmingly bipartisan, like lowering housing costs and expanding veteran assistance and protecting Social Security. What's not on his campaign website? His voting record. His voting record. His campaign image, according to Pedro Rodriguez over at the Daily Signal, does not match his voting record. Quote, while in Congress, the freshman senator voted for legislation aligned with Democrat priorities such as stricter gun control measures, which is not popular in Georgia, climate regulations, not popular in Georgia, and efforts to oppose voter identification measures. Why bring this up to you? Because once you get out of the primary, once the runoff is over, once we get out of the stage where my opponents are laughable, which he tried his best to do.
Speaking of corruption, my 2 opponents.
That's the same line as Tallarico. My opponents are corrupt oligarchs. It's the Bernie Sanders corrupt oligarchs line, but it's flavored slightly different for the South.
See, they tried to run Kemp, but he refused. So we're left with the congressman who's only a congressman because his daddy was a congressman, and the coach who's only a coach because his daddy was a coach.
Best of luck to you with that. That is really effective until the real campaign starts. How do I know? Because voters see all of this as baked into the cake now. Personal attacks are part of the election cycle. You getting out there and saying something spicy, it's part of the election cycle. Because those who are running for the Senate, those who are running for the House, and especially those who are in committee in the House and the Senate, see their job as being my job. They want to be the pundit. They want to be the analyst. They want to be the broadcaster and get out there and say there are spicy conversation points. And guess what? Voters need more than that. That's not going to work. Your voting record is stuck to you, though. And the little freshman senator might do well to remember that there's a little bit more to running a campaign than getting out there and being an angry 15-year-old girl on social media. We'll let the radio crew head over to the commercial. We've got far more news to cover than this here on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, what's the real issue for both parties right now? The Democrats could have been best served by trying to keep the fire on a couple of things. They could have tried to keep the fire on the economy, but again, I told you that was going to leave a lot of the words for the Democrat, or leave a lot of the Democrats' mouths, because they haven't offered any solutions. Again, when you say, hey man, I don't like this economy, a lot of voters will look at you and say, well, then what are you going to do about it, Senator or Representative? Aren't you Congress? Aren't you the power of the purse people? What are you doing? What are you doing about it? And they don't have anything. It's just, oh, we're going to give you universal super health care. It's going to be amazing. And oh, it's incredible. They have allowed, they being the left, because of all of this internal party chaos, have now allowed the small amount of momentum that they gained by saying that immigration customs enforcement agents in the Department of Homeland Security are all evil, murderous, terrorist thugs. Oh, they're so awful. They have now allowed the narrative on illegal immigration to swing back over to the right with the independents. Why does this matter? Illegal immigration was a huge, huge issue with voters, especially suburban voters, in the 2024 election. And if crime committed by illegal immigrants and the policies proposed for immigration enforcement is on the ballot in 2026, that is, again, a Louisville Slugger to the car keys of Democrats. It is. And they're pulling up way too late. And I mean it. They are pulling up. They're trying now to flip it around. They're pulling it up way too late. Chuck Schumer was distracted by the Department of Justice reparations fund for political prosecution. Hakeem Jeffries, on the other hand, he is now desperately trying to pull up days after a line of attack from the Department of Homeland Security. So the Department of Homeland Security has been cataloging every single incident of illegal immigrant crime in the United States, the arrests that are taking place, the deportations, those kind of efforts that are, again, something that when it happens in your local community, it doesn't just wash away after a couple of days like an economic statistic which ebbs and flows. So at the end of May, Hakeem Jeffries was talking about how, oh, this Delaney Hall in New Jersey, where, again, we've been reporting on the violence, the riots, the fist punches, the excitable good times happening on the New Jersey side. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, who's supposed to be leading the fight for campaigning. He's supposed to be the guy that Democrats look to. It's not even really much the Senate Minority Leader, in this case for Chuck Schumer. The House guy is supposed to be the one who is most in touch with your party across the country. So while Hakeem Jeffries was busy, supposed to be campaigning, instead, he's out there yelling about immigration detention centers in New Jersey.
Here in America, immigration enforcement should be fair, just, and humane. That's not what's going on here at Delaney Hall. We spoke to several individuals, none of whom has a criminal record, many of whom have been detained here at Delaney Hall for months. This is not America.
Now, he was fact-checked up and down for this and did what is a very bad move during any kind of a PR fight. He didn't respond, and he let the narrative get away from him. And so Homeland Security swooped in and said, hey, by the way, number one, DHS doesn't make laws. Congress does. We don't pick and choose which laws to enforce, and neither should you as a lawmaker. Number two, it is a crime to enter the United States illegally and to continue to evade immigration enforcement. U.S. Code Title 8, Section 1325. And then disputes a couple of other points. Hakeem finally responds, are you ready for this? A half an hour ago. At 7:01 p.m. this evening. Finally, the Democrats are bringing their response for what is going to be a key issue again. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. Democrats did not need this right now. They didn't need the Graham Plattner cheating scandals, and they certainly did not need Republicans to once again seize, pounce, whatever you prefer there, Politico. They didn't really need Republicans once again conveying to American people that immigration and crime are issues that voters trust to Republicans. And when it comes to voters seeing laws carried out and enforced, they really hold the presidential and the midterm elections in about an equal footing here, meaning that if it's an issue on laws or enforcing them, voters hold Congress about as much as responsible for the effects of crime, immigration, those kind of matters, as they do the executive branch enforcing those laws. Now, what does that mean? That means that by allowing Republicans, while Democrats were freaked out about the Department of Justice or Donald Trump's ballroom with a drone port that can fit quite a couple of drones on it, let me tell you, it's going to be quite something, or painting the reflection pool in Washington, D.C., while they've been focused on that, the Trump administration has been detailing through now former Senator, Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen, a plan to speed up deportation and increase scrutiny over judges who allow illegal immigrants to go free. We reported on this on Friday that Governor Tim Walz pardoned a man convicted of armed robber. Why? So that under federal law, which says, hey, if you can commit a violent crime here in the country and you're not a citizen, you're gone. Bye. And Governor Tim Walz brought the guy up early and said, I'm going to pardon you so that ICE can't deport you right now. Well, I mean, that is if they can't find you, that is. So in the midst of all of this nightmare, we are, in fact, making illegal immigration once again a big part of the election. And it all comes down to the violent accidents that we've seen in transportation on major interstates, illegal aliens being sentenced to 10 years for raping a minor and sex trafficking, international incidents, which we're going to cover later, like young men being stabbed and the police arresting the young man who was stabbed. These kinds of things are going to dominate the news cycle as much as perhaps the left would want it to be something else. It's too late. It's here. According to CBS News, the Department of Homeland Security is developing a plan that would allow for quick asylum rejections without interviews, according to internal documents. So what do these internal documents show? That the Department of Homeland Security recognizes that there are not enough immigration judges. So they're trying to staff some of the department or the immigration court system with some spare judges from the DOJ. And they're also trying to stop the amount of just asylum cases piled on endlessly ad nauseum. Now, this is also really deeply upset some over on the media side of things because they have, in outrage, claimed that illegal immigrants are now going to be losing all of their what's the term here? All of their subsidies for free childcare. So there are a couple of news outlets today. According to the New York Times, this is actually according to Nicholas Nihamas, a New York Times reporter in D.C., quote, Trump is methodically stripping immigrants, including many with legal status, of their ability to function in daily life. What does that mean? Quote, cutting them off from everything from jobs to daycare subsidies. So remember how there have been people on the right telling you for ages that the reason a lot of things are expensive, that there aren't access to a lot of services, that some taxes are high, that there isn't enough housing available, that there's all of this bloat and fraud, is because there are tons and tons, millions and billions of federal dollars that are going into subsidies for programs from jobs to Medicare to Medicaid to daycare that aren't even being received by American citizens. And again, the New York Times even admits here, some of the people that were receiving these daycare subsidy, how many of you out there have either children or grandchildren who are currently paying for their own daycare? Who are currently paying for their kids' daycare? I'm sure that most of you out there would say, yeah, my kids or my grandchildren, now they have kids, are paying for their own daycare. They're not getting subsidies. But the New York Times is losing it because right now the Trump administration is making it more difficult for those who are not citizens to receive federal aid. And this has a lot of people very, very upset. Daniel Goldman of New York is furious. A whole big video. He's like, how could I observed all of these super hearings where they're just looking at illegal immigrants and they're just looking at them and saying, you need to leave. Yeah, they're just saying you need to leave. How could they do it? It's so terrible. Here he is freaking out to the camera over immigration courts being sped up.
Out in front of 290 Broadway in Manhattan here, where I just observed several mega master hearings, a new concept from EOIR, the Department of Justice's Immigration Enforcement.
First of all, mega master hearings, that sounds pretty freaking sweet. That sounds like something that I voted for, to be honest with you, but we'll let him continue.
They are essentially having an assembly line of immigration cases. Mm-hmm. Some courtrooms have as much as 100 people who are supposed to appear. It is
There's your shocked face for the YouTube thumbnail.
It's literally a factory at this point. Just roll.
Not what a factory means. The idea by saying it's a factory, as though things are being processed quickly, means that, oh, the Trump administration's treating people like animals. You guys do know that when you go to the DMV, that there can be 100, 200 people in the DMV. You take a number and you sit there and then they call you up one at a time. Like a factory. Ah, the horror.
people through, and it's disgraceful. It is a blatant violation of due process. Let us be very, very clear.
It's not. It's not. There is no special magical thing. Like, you don't have to read the Miranda rights to a legal alien. Like, you have the right to remain silencio. That's not a thing. You are not here legally. Again, the idea of immigration courts in their framework are supposed to be over visa disputes. They're not supposed to be over illegal immigrants and whether or not they get to claim asylum or whether they're just here to take federal funding and subsidize their welfare here. As a reminder, in 2016 in Hungary, the government of the nation cut off all foreign aid or welfare for anyone who is not a citizen of the nation of Hungary. And over the next 4 years, applications for asylum in Hungary dropped to 2% of the numbers they were at in 2016. I mean, that's according to the immigration data from the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Hungary. So, I mean, it almost appears as though making this the framework for the 2026 midterms is something that's phenomenal for Republicans as an opportunity when the Senate is in gridlock. And I'm sure I could tell you that, oh, well, there's a lot of hope if we just get through yet another package for the budget. No. What everything is resting on right now is, in fact, the executive branch. Do I wish it were different? Well, absolutely. But that's not the way things are, as you've heard me say time and time again. Now, this brings us over to a couple of things regarding the New Jersey update. So a Brooklyn man is being charged now with threatening to assault and murder an Immigration Customs Enforcement officer outside of the Delaney Hall detention facility. So at the same time that we have the Attorney General of New Jersey, Miss, and what is her name here? I think I'm looking through my tweets here because I called it an especially gay statement. Yes, a statement from Attorney General Davenport, quote, "We are grateful for the close partnership and cooperation over the past weekend between New Jersey State Police, Newark Police Department, and many other blah, 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 blah. Quote, we also sincerely thank the many protesters who have engaged in peaceful advocacy and protest." So the Attorney General's office from New Jersey has made it a priority to thank the peaceful protesters. Here are some of the peaceful protesters as they were called.
I'll kill your whole family! Your whole family's dead!
You know how when you're peacefully protesting, you see a police officer and you scream that you're going to kill their whole effing family and, you know, their whole effing family is going to be dead? Usually you have to be the Attorney General of Virginia to get away with something like that.
Come on! Children, your wife, come all day! Put it, my boy! I have your face, mother! You're dead!
Oh, have your face. Oh, well, that explains the whole masking thing. Anywho, so this individual, 27-year-old Nicholas Matthew Scelfo of Brooklyn, New York, was arrested for influencing, impeding, and retaliating against a federal officer by threat. Now, by the way, if this man would have succeeded in an act of violence against the officer's family, you would see all of these pieces from journalists all the way over to officials and representatives and senators and DNC staffers who would tell you that they understand how people could, be really violent because that's the culture that has been provided. The fun little downside to embracing the Sanders wing of the party is that radical young Marxists tend to act like violent young revolutionaries. So, again, does it get any better on the moderate side of the party? What little moderate side there is, the corporatist side of the party, one might say. Well, if Gretchen Whitmer's not running, what about Governor Kathy Hochul? Does Kathy Hochul have anything here that's looking good? No. According to Bill Malugin over at Fox News, this is just before 4 p.m. Eastern, breaking, the U.S. Department of Transportation confirms to Fox News that they have issued a subpoena to the state of New York after they allege the state has refused to cooperate with their investigation into Jing Shendong, the bus driver who caused a crash that killed 5 people in Stafford County, Virginia on Friday morning. The Department of Transportation say that Dong is a naturalized U.S. citizen who was born in China, doesn't speak English, and you guessed it, received his commercial driver's license from the state of New York. Now, the Department of Transportation says the subpoena is a result of not being able to get the documents. So they said, hey, give us some documents. Let's see if this guy's actually a citizen. And New York said, nope. And so now it's time for a subpoena. And this could be a significant battle for Kathy Hochul and the New York state government to fight as this becomes the norm in federal versus state government CDL fights over the next couple of months. Radio crew are going to send you guys to the commercial and continue over on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal. In other crime and immigration news that is not going to go away, an illegal alien from India, Kavan Kumar Patel, was sentenced to just 10 years in prison by U.S. District Judge Joseph F. Battalion for raping a minor and sex trafficking minors out of a hotel he was working at in Nebraska. Now, this is something that a lot of people have also pointed out, that there are federal judges, because again, if the judicial is going to be in the forefront of every media story, the American populace is starting to, according to the polling data, care more about judicial matters and how judges rule, as opposed to just trusting judges to be nonpartisan. The distrust of the United States judicial system has quintuplated. The distrust has quintuplated since 2010. You have individuals now who will see these kind of cases where an individual, an illegal immigrant, is only sentenced to a decade in prison for, again, not just one horrible, violent, evil crime, which should have earned that individual the rope. Whether it's a citizen, non-citizen, black, white, brown, who cares? You are engaged in the sexual abuse of a minor, it should be the rope. It should be a hangman's noose. Period. Nothing else. But also sex trafficking minors out of a hotel he was working at in Nebraska. Now, what's the actual flip to this? There are essentially two views that are going to come out of these particular instances, and every time it's the exact same thing. Every time. Republicans will say we need to enforce the law and we need to get violent criminals out of the country. That is view number one. Here's Brandon Gill, representative from Texas, a rising star for sure, making this case with the Department of Homeland Security.
As far as...
Wait, not that particular clip here. Make sure I have the right stuff. This would be Brandon Gill in Texas. Do we actually have the Brandon Gill? Well, in the meantime, here's the flip side of the view. While I'm getting while I'm getting the Brandon Gill clip up, here's the flip. Here's Jennifer Welch saying the entire issue is just about, caging children.
As far as accountability with what we're seeing, one thing that Donald Trump has been is transparent in the crimes that he's committing and the transferring of taxpayer money to himself, to his sons, Dumb and Dumber, and to his billionaire friends. How much or all gas are you on all this once you get in there?
So I am someone who doesn't believe in the carceral state. We represent 5% of the world population, but 25% of the people in cages, our country. I will make an exception for these kleptocracy supporters.
So that's the argument we're going to make. Well, I'm not really for caging people. Here's the flip side with, actually, we're getting ready to bring the radio crew back in from commercial, so I won't begin Brandon's clip. If you come to the table, if you come to the table with, I'm going to let it happen because you're not empathetic enough, that's not going to play. It's not. Expecting that it's going to play, I don't see that as becoming a thing. We got to bring the radio crew back in from commercial. We have a lot more to cover tonight. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Two views on immigration enforcement, because again, it is on the ballot in 2026. It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be an economic referendum, and it still will be. But if you bring in crime and immigration in a lot of these swing states into the mix, not really spelling a very good vision for those over on the left as the polling trends continue. So again, we talked about Jennifer Welch. She decided to bring on, guests saying, well, what are you going to do when you get in there? We're going to stop the incarceral state. We've heard Brandon Johnson from Chicago say, prison is racist. Imprisoning people, we're not going to get out of this by locking up the bad people. The flip side to this is guys like Representative Brandon Gill of Texas. Here you go.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to thank Secretary Mullen for taking the time to come out to Dallas and to these genuine heroes for our country in everything that they've been doing. ICE and Border Patrol are on the front lines of not only defending American sovereignty, but keeping our communities safe and ensuring that murderers and rapists and gangbangers are not running loose within our neighborhoods. These are the guys who are making sure that America stays America, that it is a place where we can raise our kids safely and in communities that are conducive to American flourishing. And we're so thankful for the work you guys have done.
If those are the two choices, number one, again, thanking a lot of law enforcement, that kind of patriotic angle, that's going to sell. That is going to work. Now, again, being podium Barbie, not going to work. And there's a very big difference between Mark Wayne Mullen and what Brandon Gill is doing versus what Kristi Noem was doing in regard to her role as head of DHS. Again, different scales in bringing in that part of the job, different from the beginning of the second Trump administration to now, of course. The flip side isn't going to work. Now, that brings us to some of the international news, because the other big distraction for the day that a lot of people are suggesting is going to be the do or die, the make or break for the midterm season, is this foreign hokey pokey. So there was a bizarre idea, and it truly is bizarre, that everything regarding the Iran-US situation is going to stretch on, and there's going to be huge oil shortages in the United States, which already isn't true. Gas prices are stabilizing, coming down in the United States as this, again, things that was told wasn't going to happen. There was a crew over on CNN suggesting that, oh man, prices are going to take 5 years to come down. No, not in fact remotely true at all. When you trust Iranian state media sources, you're not really getting your best. Now, on the flip side, Americans are starting to become a little more desensitized to this particular conflict, which both works for the Trump administration and does not work for the Trump administration. And here's why. Right now, we have the hokey pokey. So we announced there's going to be a big deal in. Iran's going to pull back out. There's going to be a big deal in, and we'll shake our hands about. That's not going to work. It's not. We've been doing this now for a bit, where the Trump administration will get up and they will announce, I have a big deal. It's going to be huge. The nuclear dust is being turned over. And then the Iranians will say, no, dust, we're staying right here. Everything is fine. And we know what kill Americans. And we repeat, and we repeat, and we repeat. So there, again, I have not tried to, clickbait you guys for quite a while into suggesting that there's a deal just right around the corner. Just, gee willikers, it's right here, because I don't believe that's the case. And here's why, by the way. After the Trump administration had announced that there was another deal right around the corner, Iran got out and announced that they were cutting off all of the dialogue everywhere, each and everywhere. So according to Trey Yingst over at Fox News as their chief foreign correspondent with the initial translation from Iranian state TV, quote, Iran suspended all diplomatic communication and messages with the United States, according to Iranian state media. The decision was reportedly due to Iranian opposition to the Israeli strikes against Hezbollah. And then according to Axios, the president then turned around and started demanding that Israel stop crossing the Lahani River and fighting Hezbollah in Iran. Barak Ravid bringing that report from Axios, so grain of salt. But let's dig into the statements from the president, because these do matter, at least as far as, again, we're looking towards the end of Q2 to see where this goes. So earlier this morning, he put out, quote, Iran wants to make a deal, and it will be a good one for the USA and those that are with us. But don't the Democrats and various seemingly unpatriotic Republicans understand that it's much tougher for me to do my job properly and negotiate when political hacks keep negatively chirping at levels I've never seen before over and over again, or that I should move faster or move slower or go to war or not go to war or whatever. Just sit back and relax. It will all work out in the end. It always does. President Donald John Trump. Here's the thing. That complaining, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. It's the nature of the beast. It is. It's the same thing whether we're talking about Republicans complaining about what Democrats are focusing on, Democrats focusing on what Republicans are focusing on. It is the age of social media. It is the age of car keys jangling and people following the scandal. It is. And so one of the things you're calling for right now, again, the president puts out a lot of statements on social media, the idea that it's all over or that it's all going to be a victory, no one's really going to believe the promise until they see the results. The celebration for President Trump beautifying Washington, D.C., scrubbing a lot of the sculptures and the fountains, cleaning things up. Didn't happen when he announced, and we're going to clean up Washington, D.C. It came after people said, wow, the fountains are back on and the homeless people aren't stabbing each other everywhere and there are no needles and there's no feces next to Union Station. Well, wow, this is kind of nice. The results are what deliver the results from the voters. Results beget more results. And so as to the kind of back and forth, and this is a hokey pokey at this point. I'm sorry. I can't frame it up any nicer or more negatively here. Nothing's really happening. The Iranians are suffering significantly from the U.S. naval blockade. Absolutely. The regime is struggling. And we've seen this. There are rumors that, President Pezeshkian might resign, and Ghalibaf is focused on wild things from the parliamentary side. As far as pegging this whole thing to Bibi Netanyahu and the Israelis, Trump said, quote, I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu today, asking him not to go into a major raid of Beirut, Lebanon. And then he said he turned his troops around. Thank you, Bibi. There's a lot of things here that just boil down to rumor mongering. There is, until actual action takes place. Someone speculating the victory or the defeat kind of rings a little hollow. Radio Crew will catch you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, as the radio crew, as fine as they are shuffled out, I do want to dive into a bigger foreign story right now. So first of all, I'm sorry, I should mention there's one final update on the Iranian situation. Last night at 11 p.m. Eastern, U.S. forces successfully intercepted 2 Iranian ballistic missiles targeting American forces in Kuwait. There is a little bit of elevated action right now between the United States Navy and some of the CENTCOM forces, which may suggest a possible coalition activity. But until I see some indicators here that say, hey, this is happening very soon, I'm not going to try to sell you the ifs, ands, buts, and coconuts there. So moving on to some other major international news here that is pretty significant. According to my colleague at the Daily Signal, Tyler O'Neill, the American Civil Liberties Union, that would be the ACLU, has been funneling millions of dollars into an abortion ballot initiative that a certain watchdog has called extremely illegal. So why is the ACLU funneling a bunch of money into an abortion ballot referendum in Missouri? Why would that be a problem? Well, according to Caitlin Sutherland, the executive director of Americans for Public Trust, there are foreign charities, foreign foundations, which are pumping money into the ACLU, who is then turning around and then flipping that money into local American elections. And legally, that's not a thing. So we're going to cut over to my colleague, Tyler O'Neill, who has been doing excellent work on this story so far, and give you a little bit more framing here, because it all boils down to my least favorite person on planet Earth, the billionaire Hansjorg Wyss over in Switzerland. We go over to Tyler O'Neill, our senior editor at the Daily Signal. I've seen it. I've seen the name. I caught it this morning in an editor's meeting, and I couldn't help it. What is Swiss billionaire and wild leftist Hansjorg Wyss up to this time?
Yeah, so this time, Hansjorg Wyss is indirectly funding an abortion and transgender ballot initiative in Missouri through the ACLU Foundation, or at least that's the claim of Americans for Public Trust. Naturally, Hansjorg Wyss has been shoveling millions of dollars into the ACLU Foundation, and now the ACLU is shoveling $2.5 million into this Missouri ballot initiative. Unfortunately for the ACLU and for Hansjorg Wyss, the Missouri has banned foreign funding of ballot initiatives. So it's going to be very interesting when Attorney General Hanaway decides to actually investigate this situation, whether the ACLU can actually prove that its foreign funding is not influencing this ballot initiative.
Well, I know there are a lot of ballot initiatives that Hansjorg has been suggested of being associated with before. He funds a lot of initiatives, but he also funds the coverage of those initiatives. There are a lot of nonprofit, wink, wink, style online publications in the United States that all just so happen to lean one way. The Indiana Capital Chronicle in my home state is one of them, that takes money from these foundations that are propped up by Hansjorg with the same political leaning always coming forward. And I would just so happen to bet that here with this ballot referendum regarding abortion, certain media outlets are covering it in certain ways.
Yes, most certainly. And the other thing we have to focus on with Hansjorg Wyss is he has said publicly that he intends to change America's electoral system. But he does so, he has to do so through interesting means because he's decided, he's a Swiss citizen, he's decided not to pursue legalization as an American citizen. So he's here in the United States using his money that he earned from Switzerland and using it in American politics, specifically trying to do so without becoming an American citizen himself and without, therefore, following the law in situations like in Missouri and in other states. I believe Ohio has also banned foreign funding in ballot initiatives.
Well, I know that he unsuccessfully attempted to purchase the national newspaper chain owned by Tribune Publishing. So obviously that would have been quite a couple of newspapers from Missouri to Ohio to around the country. And he's kind of tried reshifting some of his priorities since then and trying to kind of maneuver around different ways so that he didn't get caught by foreign funding. Are there any rules for organizations that take foreign dollars and then spend those once they're here in the United States? Because I know that Code Pink attempts to do this kind of stuff, but they're now facing additional scrutiny by the State Department under Marco Rubio.
Yeah, so we have that whole network of Neville Roy Singham, which is a different network than Hansjorg Wyss, but Code
Different
Pink
guy,
is at
same
the center
stuff.
of that. And that is Chinese money. So here we're talking about Swiss money. There you're talking about Chinese money. And of course, in the situation of George Soros, now granted, Soros actually did become an American citizen, but he earned a lot of his money by shorting the Bank of England. So, taking essentially UK money and using that to influence American politics. Over and over again, we see these leftist efforts to undermine our system, and they'll take money from anywhere. And these places like the ACLU are just constantly pushing. I mean, the ACLU is one of the worst of the worst because of everything they do on immigration, where they've been fighting. They fought for open borders before Biden became president, and they helped influence his policy while he was president. And now they're fighting tooth and nail against Trump's efforts to deport some of those 10 million illegal aliens that were imported under Biden. But, this is a vast apparatus with many different overlapping networks. And Hansjorg Wyss and Neville Roy Singham and Alex Soros, now George Soros' son, who's really in control, are key figures in the middle of it. But this is something I'm working hard to expose. I know you're working hard to expose. The Daily Signal is on it. And there's always a new angle to the way that the left is pushing its agenda using this dark money.
Well, for me, it's more of a personal vendetta. There are so many people don't understand how many Hansjorg Wyss action funds and organizations there are. There's the Burger Action Fund. There's also, there are legitimately so many of these. The Wyss Foundation, the New Venture Fund, which is the parent of the Hub Project, the 1630 Fund. These are all set up and owned by the Hansjorg Wyss infrastructure. And when you see the kind of groups that they have given money to here in the United States, where you can see illegal election intervention complaints from 2021, 2023, 2024, there is a wild amount of foreign influence that is happening, trying to go through as many, let's say, legal hoops and clearing bureaucratic hurdles as it possibly can in what is essentially just international laundering of funds to try to, in this case, a ballot referendum measure. But of course, we see a lot of major elections as well that are under the knife on these. Tyler O'Neill, our senior editor for the Daily Signal, thanks for giving us a couple of minutes on this. We know you're keeping a close eye on this, and we look forward to more of your reporting in this.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
All right, let's talk very, very briefly this evening, kind of on the bonus tonus side of things. A couple of things we've been meaning to announce for ages, and ages and ages and ages it's finally here. We finally got merch. So you guys have asked, you've pestered for a couple of years now since we've started. We put it off as long as we can. Merch is finally here. If you go to the description, you'll find a link that takes you right to the Daily Signal's website. There's some Tony Kinnett cast stuff. We're adding to it daily. Stickers, t-shirts, that kind of stuff, if that's your game. We've got magnets and patches coming. So you can let everyone know that absolutely nobody has any clue who I am. And that's totally fine. So, hey, there you go. Some of you have asked. Well, we listened. And so some of that merch is available. If you are listening to this and you don't have time to click on that stinky old link in the description, if you head over to dailysignal.com and you scroll with all of your might to the bottom of the page, there's a little link to shop. And you can click that there. Now, that's the merch side. There's a giveaway that we are doing. We are pushing that to tomorrow because I'm still working on getting some of the forms stuff just right. I don't want anyone's forms for the free merch giveaway to be lost. And so we're making sure that it works. So just to be clear, website forms are a pain. We want to make sure that it's done the right way. So that'll be coming tomorrow evening. Join us then for that. So outside of the merch stuff, back to some of the news. We were planning on covering a little bit on the Henry Nowak murder in the United Kingdom. This is such a large story, and producer Josiah, producer Jen, producer Daniel, they're uncovering more footage, more articles. This is a developing story. I am going to make the executive decision to wait just for a bit until tomorrow. We're going to cover this in depth tomorrow so that we can cover it all the way through and correctly, because this is 1,000 times worse, as Matt Walsh accurately states, 1,000 times worse than George Floyd ever was. Ever. So we're going to cover some of that stuff tomorrow. The last little bit here is that it is now June 1st. And because it is June 1st, that means two very, very important things. The first of these is that a lot of annoying people on social media are being very, very annoying and awkward. So, for example, sports teams like the Nashville Predators had this post, Happy Pride Month, Smashville, which is, that's quite the post. So, first of all, the Predators, Happy Pride Month, that's a little on the nose. In this case, on the nose of the furry. So, got to get, the furry pride stuff in there. So, there you go. Happy Pride Month, Smashville. Again, phrasing. So while all of that is going on, there's a couple of important notes here. Since the late 20-teens era, from what we can see so far, we don't have a total count yet because sometimes there are a couple of companies who are late to the party because they're probably waiting to see what's going on. But in this instance, it's looking like there are the fewest number of companies who are changing everything for Pride Month. There are fewer Pride posts. There are fewer because Americans are just tired of praising people for their sexuality. They are. They're tired of it. They're tired of seeing the stories like out of California, like the dude who thinks he's a girl who won in track, that Tom Steyer is trying to make a big part of his campaign to be super duper and wonderful. It's just not likely that right now we're seeing a huge wave kind of against Trump, counter to Trump in favor of Pride, whatever. Not seeing it in the 2026 year. Now, in other news, the governors of Indiana and Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee and Governor Mike Braun of Indiana, have both signed resolutions declaring June as Nuclear Family Month, which is pretty excellent. That's pretty excellent. Now, is it political theater? Yeah, of course it is. But declaring a month anything is political theater in and of itself. We haven't actually had months for things that have mattered since Cancer Awareness Months. I'm sorry. The idea that it's this history month, it's this cultural month, and whatever it doesn't matter. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. And so declaring, this is Nuclear Family Month, fine, excellent, good. I like that. I hope that it comes with a couple of state provisions here in my home state of Indiana or down in the great state of Tennessee, reforms and revisions to the foster care system. And also, again, I'm still asking for those who abuse children, the noose, instead of, actually, we got to let him go after 10 years. I know that was a federal case, but still, a state law or two like that would go a long way towards supporting the nuclear family. So those things said and aside, I will take just a couple of mail time questions this evening, and then we will shuffle on out. So one question that I've seen, from Abad asking me if I've heard about this Lego American Fork Police Department debacle. I have. There's a whole lot of scandal about a police department. I think American Fork's out in, Utah. I've read some of the articles on it. I'm not really ready to kind of release my verdict and findings on it, but that's kind of one of the questions that shuffled forward. So I thought it would probably be the best, to wait. Again, I know that's not always popular, but I do try to be fair with you guys on that particular line. From R. Waring, and again, the best way to submit mail time questions, there's a link to the Discord in the description as well, a little mail time channel that we try to shuffle through here on the show side of things. From R. Waring, if Trump's executive order requiring the United States Postal Service to check voter rolls against Social Security before mailing in votes for counting, will this also affect state elections if they use the Postal Service? I'm sure that you will probably see individuals file lawsuits that request that data, but it's unclear at this point. And the reason I say it's unclear is because the United States Postal Service hasn't begun manufacturing the envelopes and setting up the vote tracking system. So we don't know yet. I would say that you're likely going to see people use federal data as an argument in certain calls for recounts and runoffs and things like that. So on that particular note, from Kristen Austin, does Tony write his own jokes? Yes, and I don't write them down. They're all fresh, served immediately, right from the ADHD, for better or for worse. That gives my editor-in-chief at the Daily Signal a good heart attack every once in a while. That said, and aside here, from Sandy FZ8, what happens when so the suggestion is, if neither Obama and Harris are eligible, to be president of the United States based on immigrant parents kind of birthright citizenship thing, then what would happen if a Chinese citizen came in and then runs for president? So regarding the birthright citizenship argument, coming into the United States, the idea that we're going to suddenly take everyone who has been brought into the United States and born and then strip that away, that would be a serious Supreme Court ruling. Do I expect it to happen? No, I don't. Do I expect that Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts are going to hop on that train? No, I don't see it. And because I don't see it, I can't, what would happen if they tried to come in and run for office? So far, the Chinese-influenced California political scene doesn't seem to have picked up a lot of momentum for running for federal office. I mean, we're not really seeing the kind of Chinese apparatus for political influence in the United States seems to be much more built towards toppling the United States tech supremacy, whereas Russia does in fact attempt to meddle politically here in the United States, as does the Islamic world. So the political meddling happens on kind of the Russo and the Muslim world, the Islamic world, whereas the Chinese political involvement is much more centered on technological supremacy and preventing the United States from operating economically internationally. There's a really fascinating article, I'll try to find it and throw it up over in the Discord, on the difference between the foreign policy strategies of Russia and China, because they have different aims for the United States. Really interesting stuff, kind of second worldism and third worldism and Marxist kind of ideology. But that's probably, another tale for another time. It does matter because the foreign policy sphere kind of in the United States is changing rather rapidly. Last one I'll take here for the evening from Marquis81. Hypothetical for you, Tony. Let's say in the future, the U.S. transitions into a different type of government, like a dictatorship or a monarchy, for example. What do you think would happen to the country as a whole? Would it splinter apart into separate nations, stay unified, or a mix of both? So first of all, I don't see any chance of the United States turning into a monarchy. No, I don't see that being a thing. The idea that there would be an individual who would be so beloved by a majority of the country and the people so abdicate kind of their frustrations locally to a monarchical situation, I just don't see it. As to the concept of the United States going into some kind of a dictatorial uprising, Kurt Schlichter and I have postulated on this a lot. Of course, he's written all of the Kelly Turnbull novels and, a second American Civil War kind of thing. I think that way before we get there, I've said before here on the show that the American people that though it will likely get worse, at least as far as the government taking certain liberties away and people not caring until it's too late, things will get worse before they get better. When they do get better, I do see Americans returning to a sense of traditionalism on the Republic manner. I believe I would look towards seeing constitutional amendments overturned before I see some type of Supreme Court situation. I mean, do I see like an A24 Studios American Civil War where like certain groups break away and form alliances? No. And the reason I don't is that there are too many people here in the country who are more citizens of the United States than they are of their own states. Do I see a balkanization in the US? No, I don't see it. I just don't. I used to think that, and that was more of a, kind of like the fantasies of the youth. You kind of imagine that maybe things might break up into places. I just don't see it. I don't see American people acting that way. The American consciousness rises and falls as a whole. And you see this with a lot of social media trends. People think the algorithm directs that. Really, the algorithm tries to ride the wave and gently steer. People go searching for certain things and force the echo chamber in a certain direction. The Overton window, maybe for a short time, was governed or held tightly by for example, the Biden administration during the early COVID era. But the general psyche of the American people, kind of as we understand through pattern psychology and kind of anthropology as a whole, Americans are too, in a good way, and I mean this in a good form, the good term of entitled. Americans do feel entitled to rights. And so when they are annoyed, they will collectively come together to put a stop to nonsense in a way that you don't see in the United Kingdom, because those rights of man were never established and held firm. It was only ever a handshake through the Magna Carta, and it wasn't enough. So the U.S. holds the legal right to annex Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is already a United States territory. So, no. Does the United States hold the legal right to annex Cuba? There's two currently operating federal laws. They've been like back and forth for quite a bit. The United States could probably, without a declaration of war by the United States Congress, occupy Cuba and set up a United States territory, but it would probably have to go to a referendum for Congress for an independent power to take over. Congress in the early 1900s made it pretty clear that they viewed Cuba as an independent polity. And even when the United States government started taking rent checks, the legitimacy of the Cuban government, there's actually something really fascinating here, by the way. The diplomatic argument for the United States keeping Guantanamo and the diplomatic argument for the United States viewing the communist regime of Cuba as a legitimate power that has to be dissoluted and subjugated comes from a check that the Cuban government cashed so the United States government is supposed to pay rent for Guantanamo Bay. And we do. We pay a rent check every single month. Here's the rent for Guantanamo Bay. And right when Fidel Castro's regime took over, they cashed one of the checks. And the State Department went, no take-backsies, even though Castro's regime tried to give it back. That brokered an agreement between the United States and Cuba economically that says, I recognize you're a legitimate power, even though currently under Congress, you're an enemy of the United States. Which again, is how we get down to the good fun, around all that stuff. It says the store can't accept payment for the orders of merch. Well, that's interesting. We'll try to figure out what's going on there for you. But, that stuff aside, looking over at the, lovely, excellent comment section over here. Well, folks, we're glad that you guys stop on by the Tony Kinnett cast. I think that we'll, a furry is the mascot of the Nashville Smashville Predators. Ew, that's gross. Yikes. All right, we'll get back tomorrow with good old-fashioned news of the day, some shenanigans, and then, of course, we'll dive more into this disturbing story out of the United Kingdom. Like and subscribe if you haven't. That really helps us out. And, of course, we'll do that giveaway tomorrow as well, once we make sure all of the forms and payment info and everything else is working just right. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Y'all, take care.